Enlisted is based on World War II. Everyone who plays knows that. But in this video, I'm going to put an emphasis on the world part of World War II and talk about the many nations that make an appearance in Enlisted. I have nothing else to say, so I'll move on to the actual content. I'll blitz over to major nations to get to this cool stuff, so skip to this time if you want to see the other stuff. The Soviets joined the war from the beginning of Operation Barbarossa and fought until the end of the war in 1945. Naturally, the Soviets would be a major nation in the game. Most parts of the Soviet tech tree had Soviet equipment, including the SVT-40, the DP-27, and the PPD-40s. Being the country that started the war, this would most definitely be the major nation in Enlisted. It has a ton of its own equipment like the Kar-98K, the MG-34, and the MP-38, and its variants. The United States entered the war after the attacks on Pearl Harbor and other territories. America produced so much equipment they then leased it to allies and guerrillas, as seen with the Soviet tech tree with the M1 bazooka, and way back when the Thompson was available. Their equipment includes the M1 Garand, the M1 Thompson, and the Browning M1918A1, and its variants. The Japanese caused the Pacific War in 1941 after the attacks on American and Allied territories. It has its own domestic weaponry like the Zero, the Type 99 LMG, and the Type 99 early rifle, and its variants. Unfortunately, they don't have a lot of equipment, being the newest faction of the day. Italy entered the war in 1940 for its imperial ambitions. Although their performance is less than ideal during the war, they did make their own equipment. Some include the FNAB 43, or FNAB, however you want to call it, the Breda Modello 30, or Trento, however you want to say it, and the Carcano M41. The United Kingdom joined the war on September 3rd, 1939 and made their own equipment. A lot of this equipment will be sent to the Commonwealth, so you could see Australians to Kenyans using British rifles or machine guns. Some of this equipment include the Bren Mark II, the Piat, and the Lee Enfield variants. There. Now that I've gone over the major nations, it's time to go through the minor nations, or at least the obscure nations in Enlisted.
Sing ho for a brave and a gallant ship in a fair and favouring breeze and a bonny career.
Australia joined the war on September 3rd, 1939 and fought till the end of the war. They mainly used British equipment which is already present in the game. However, they did build their own domestic weaponry and equipment. Some are represented in the game. In the Allied tech tree, the 6th SMG that you can unlock is the Owen gun, which is one of the few domestic SMG designs that Australia had. Before the merge, there was a Owen gun premium squad, which had Australian uniforms along with the Enfield P14T. There was also an event squad that featured Australian soldiers with their uniforms with another domestically designed gun called the Austin Mark I. There were two more premium squads, both of which were vehicles. The first one is a tank, the ACI Sentinel, and the second one is the Boomerang, which is a plane. Unfortunately, they don't have their own voice lines, instead using the British ones, which is fairly disappointing. New Zealand joined the war near the beginning of the war and fought till the very end. Like much of the Commonwealth, the Kiwis mainly used British equipment. However, there were few domestic designs that they designed themselves. Specifically in Enlisted, there is one event gun that represents New Zealand in the game. That gun being the Charlton automatic rifle. The weapon comes with a squad that features a squad of Kiwis with their unique hats. This squad was available during the event called Operation Fiery November, and me being an old man, I do have this squad, and it's pretty fun to play. Unfortunately, they do not have their unique voice lines as they use British voices, which is also disappointing, much like the Australian squads. Morocco joined the war initially on the French side to counter Italian troops in Libya, but when France surrendered, the Moroccans returned to their homes. They would eventually take up arms again to fight against the Axis when the Allies landed in North Africa. They would fight in Tunisia and, controversially, in Europe. Nonetheless, they are represented in the game with the first group of Moroccan auxiliaries. They have their own uniforms, speak French, and even have their own dagger. The squad carries the French Berthier M16 carbine. Speaking of France, France has a huge presence in the game, despite not actually having a French squad in the game. The only squad that comes close to being a French squad are the Moroccans, who have French voice lines. Besides this, there are equipment that belong to French origin. In the Axis tech tree, they have the Maz 36 rifle and the Potez 633. Although the plane itself is French, its origin is Romanian. I'll get to that a little bit. There is a French gun in a Volkssturm premium squad called the Lebel 1886 M93. In the Japanese Gold Order menu, you can see a Hotchkiss M1922, which is a French machine gun. Another French machine gun that makes an appearance as a Gold Order can be seen in the Allied faction, where there's the Châtellerault M2429. In the Moroccan premium squad, you can see the French-made Berthier M16 carbine in the hands of these soldiers. Belgium makes an appearance with a couple of weapons. The most known being the FN Model 1930, which is a Belgian version of the BAR, or the BAR. The other weapon is a pistol for the Allied faction and limited for the Soviet and German faction, being the Browning High Power. It was being designed by the famous John Browning, but he unfortunately died in 1926 before it could be finished, and the work was finished by
Dieudonne Sèvres.
It would be produced extensively by Belgium, and they sold it to many nations until it was invaded and the factory producing the pistol was taken over by the Germans, which would be producing it for the Germans. Which actually it's also represented in the game as it is also sold for Soviets, but I'm not sure why. Surprisingly, India, or British Raj, does have representation in the game, though it is with one thing, the Vickers Berthier. The British initially made the machine gun, but it was rejected by the British military. Luckily for the machine gun and the company making the machine gun, the Indian colony was more than happy to have the Vickers Berthier in their ranks, and they used it up until the 80s. Before the invasion of Czechoslovakia, the Czechs were very big arms dealers, selling many guns, tanks, and planes to many nations. Much of this equipment landed in the German hands, and this is represented in the game. In the Axis tree, there is many Czech equipment, such as the VZ-24, the ZH-29, the ZB-26, and the ZK-383. There is one premium squad that features a Czech tank. The Czech tank is called the Panzer 38TF. And there is a Gold Order which features the Czech pistol, which is called whatever this letter is, VZ-27. Hungary in the war had few domestic produced designs. In the game, there are a couple that can be seen. One of which is the Kareli 39M, which is a battle rating 5 machine gun, or submachine gun, my bad. It is a beautiful SMG and it hits pretty hard. The other Hungarian weapon is the Kareli 43M, which is an updated version of the Kareli 39M. Romania joined the war on the side of the Axis during the invasion of Yugoslavia, and fought until they switched sides and fought the Axis. They had their own domestic products, but few are represented in the game. One of which was a rifle removed from the Stalingrad campaign called the Mannlicher M93, or Mannlicher. I'm just going to call it Mannlicher. One of the most known planes that many people know, but don't know that's Romanian, is the IAR-81C, and the other one is the Potez 633. Even though the plane itself is French, it has Romanian insignias. The last piece of Romanian equipment is the Premium Squad Orita M1941 SMG, which criminally does not have Romanian soldiers in their squad. Ever since the Stalingrad campaign came out, I expected a shit ton more representation, as the Romanian armed forces were a very significant force in Ukraine and Stalingrad, but oh well.
Finlandia, Finlandia.
Finland does make a cameo in Enlisted with some of its weaponry. The Finns joined the war in 1941 when they tried to take back their lands of Karelia. They would be defeated by the Soviet Red Army, though. All the Finnish equipment in game is present in the German faction. There are 2 gold weapon orders that are of Finnish descent, those being the Suomi KP-26 and the Lahti Saloranta M26. There are 2 premium squads that feature Finnish equipment, the first of which is the Suomi KP-31, and the second is the removed M28 Finnish Mosin rifle. When the Poles fell in the war, a lot of their equipment was taken by the Germans. Much of that equipment can be seen in the German faction. There is 1 gold order that is a Polish SMG, the WZ-39 Mors. There's an anti-tank rifle called the WZ-35 that could have been unlocked via an event. I have both of these weapons and they are pretty nice to play. Unfortunately, I do not have the Polish semi-automatic rifle as it was removed due to the merge. It is called the KBSP WZ-38M. However, I do have the Polish Bar Premium Squad, officially called the Browning WZ-1928. Switzerland has a very unique representation in the game, as all of their equipment is in the Japanese faction. During the actual war, Switzerland did not sell guns to Japan, but instead sold guns to China. Actually, China was the second largest buyer of Swiss arms. Some of this equipment would be supposedly captured by Japanese forces, which would be used in the Pacific. Supposedly. Swiss weapons in the Japanese tech tree include the SIG 1920 and the KE7. For gold weapon orders, there is only 1 Swiss weapon, which is the SIG 1930 SMG. Thailand joined the war on the side of Japan during Japan's conquest of Southeast Asia. In-game, Thai, or Siamese, representation is fairly limited. I'm sorry, not even fairly. Extraordinarily limited. Its representation is not in the tech tree. It's not a squad. It's not a gun. But it's a gold weapon order. Vehicle order. Fuck. But a gold vehicle order. There is a gold vehicle order that is of Thai descent called the Hago Royal Thai Army. It is a Hago, but green, and has Thai writing. Which the Thai writing does look pretty cool. Austria makes a brief appearance in the game with 1 weapon, and it's an early unlock, the MP34O. I could group the Mannlicher 1895 with it too, but I felt it was more of an Austro-Hungarian design, but I'll include it here. Mexico joined the war a little after the US joined, around 1942 if my memory serves me correctly. Though no Mexican soldiers saw action, the Aztec Eagles and the Mexican Navy did see combat. However, none of these would be represented for Mexico's participation in the war in-game. Actually, Mexican representation in the game isn't even for the Allies, but for the Axis. See, way back in the day of the First World War, Mexico was selling guns to Germany, and Germany was using those guns to fight the Entente. And that gun being the Mondragon M1908, which was mainly used by the German Navy in World War I. It was supposedly used by the Volkssturm in World War II as a last-ditch effort to supply the militia with anything that could be potentially lethal. Hey, you made it to the end. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed this little informational video of Enlisted. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll keep coming out with more content. But until then, see ya.